All right, man. So peace. This is going to be volume 2 of the responding to your comment series. This is going to be based off of some comments in the Hernandez video. So I'm just going to go through the comments here and just look up the comments that I want to respond to, and we'll go from there. I'm going to start with this brother, Dude What? He asked me a question. He said, when you mention various gods, what perspective are you coming from? I'm coming from the perspective of the understanding of the pagan gods and the pagan mythologies and what their origins actually are and how they relate to today. Now he says, would you personally consider yourself a polytheist who believes in gods but one supreme lead god? Well, brother, I believe that based on the content of my videos that I pretty much illustrated that I'm a believer in the scriptures. All right. The Most High and his son. That's what I believe in. I believe in the scriptures. The question is, and this is the reason why I constantly bring up, and I consistently and constantly bring up the pagan gods, and which are listed in the scriptures, Astarte, Baal, Molech. I try to bring these things to people like you's attention, and a lot of the viewers and listeners of my channel's attention. I try to bring these things to your attention because a lot of you believe that you're worshiping the Most High, and you really are worshiping the pagan gods. Is what Paul refers to as the mystery of iniquity. And specifically you, no disrespect, brother. Once again, no disrespect. When you go to the Easter video that I did, the first thing you commented on was Happy Resurrection Day. Speaking about Christ. And Easter is not the day that Christ was resurrected. Easter is the celebration of the Mother Goddess. So, there's a lot of people out there who have been disinformed, and they make statements believing that they're venerating Christ or the Most High, and you're really venerating the Mother Goddess. So that's why that is a staple of my channel when I speak about these things. Is for people like you and for other people who come to the channel and don't really know what they worship. They think that they know, but they don't really know. And that can be traumatic for a lot of people. I understand that. All right. Says, to clarify, I am a monotheist and believe that there is only one God as found in the Holy Bible, the God over Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is not changing. Okay, that's cool. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and the only Lord and Messiah, and he gave a scripture, 1 Corinthians 8:6. I am not asking for advice in this question. I'm just looking to learn more about your perspective. Well, brother, first thing that you have to understand is that, like I've already noted in regards to your statement on the Easter video, there's some things that you have to learn. All right, whether you want to accept that or acknowledge that or not, that's totally your business. Like I said, this is not a biblical channel. But a lot of people who claim to believe in certain things, they don't really know. They're not really as informed as they can be. All right. So my perspective is that the Bible is a book of law, history, and prophecy. All right. And when you respect that and when you understand that, it stops you from getting caught up and misled and getting carried away with things where you think that you're worshiping someone you're really not. Because once again, brother, no disrespect, Easter is the worship of the Mother Goddess. Christmas is the worship of the sun god. It's known as Sol Invictus, right? The god Mithras or Osiris or whatever you want to call him. All right. I'll probably make an in-depth video on the topic soon enough, but that's the issue with that. So there are various idols mentioned in scripture. So are you referring to gods as simply meaning idols? No, the idols were created in veneration of the so-called gods, the variants of the worship of Nimrod, Cush, and Semiramis. Okay? A lot of you people that grow up in the church, y'all get caught up in the emotional aspect of things, as opposed to viewing the scriptures as a book of history and knowledge, as well as faith. All right? You have to, you have to approach the Bible in that manner, from a knowledge gathering manner. You have to respect the historical aspect of the Bible so that you can you can believe with proper context. All right. Scriptures tell you that with all thy getting, get understanding. Right? It says get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So that's something that you're gonna have to deal with. It says also, I know that Scripture uses the expression of Satan as being the god of this world and the prince of the power of the air, but they do not refer to him in a polytheistic sense. It only uses that God term as a form of expression or metaphor. I'm trying to figure out how to put this appropriately so that you can understand it. Satan is the so-called Satan. The term Satan just means adversary. Okay. So when it speaks about Satan being the god of this world, Satan's job is, and Satan is still under the authority of the Most High. You know, a lot of people in the Christian church, they have this philosophy that they teach about Satan rebelling against the Most High, and Satan never rebelled against the Most High. Satan is still under the command of the Most High. Satan is just an angel on the left-hand side. All right. He's just all the term Satan means is adversary. That's it. So Satan is a being who can use and appear in any form that he chooses, and he does so whenever he needs to provoke, like he tried to provoke Christ, or quote unquote tempt Christ. All right. He can appear in different forms. Now, when I refer to the different gods of this world, once again, I'm referring to the veneration of Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis. They were known under different names. Even in the ancient world, the mother goddess was known as, from a colloquial perspective, having 10, quote unquote, 10,000 different names. And when you study these different names, it's a different characteristic with every name, whether she's known as Isis or Aphrodite or Venus or Ishtar, Astarte, whatever you want to call her, Diana, Minerva, Hera, Rhea. All right. Every term has a different characteristic. And when you want to get the understanding behind these terms, you can get the understanding by either going into the Hebrew or the Babylonian language. All right. Like, for example, the term you have the goddess Hathor, right? The cow goddess. Why? Because the queen mother or the mother goddess was looked at as the nourishing mother. That's where we get the term alma mater from. The cow provides milk. Milk is an ancient symbol for knowledge. You understand? Same thing with Siri, Ceres. That's where you get the term cereal from, right? Siri was a Greek goddess of corn and of the crop, right? Why is that? Because another term for Nimrod was bar, meaning corn, right? The seed. Same thing with the word Osiris. The name Osiris means the seed. So that was a metaphor when Siri was known as the goddess of the corn. Is really that she was the mother of Nimrod, right? That's how the Babylonian philosophies are taught. They're taught in code. So you have to understand the double and sometimes triple meanings of these terms to understand what you're really reading about. All right. That's how they hide in plain sight. Right. So Cush was also known as Ta or Ptamin, or I've gone over this over and over and over again. The reason why I bring these things up is so that people understand what they see. The mother goddess was also known as the goddess of knowledge, the mother of knowledge. That's where you get the image of the Statue of Liberty from. You'll always see the mother goddess, or you'll oftentimes see the mother goddess holding a torch in her right hand. Right? The torch represents the so-called divine knowledge that was taught, that was started by Cush and that was passed to Nimrod when Nimrod was killed by Shem. Right? When his apostasy was taken down, it was passed to Semiramis. All right? Who was the wife and mother of Nimrod. That's how she became known as the mother goddess. You understand what I'm saying? All right. So when you see the Statue of Liberty is an image of the so-called mother goddess. All right. And you see you have Columbia Motion Pictures, the emblem, every movie that's made by the Columbia Motion Picture Company opens up with an image of the woman holding the torch that represents the mother goddess. You understand that? This is where we're living. This is she's also referred to as she's referred to in the book of Revelation as the mother of harlots, right? As Venus, right? She's known as the goddess of love. She was the mother of harlots. She was the patron mother goddess of whores. All right, I think I covered this before. That's why, you know, when you got these dudes that go to the strip club, they throwing dollar bills around. That comes from the temple of Venus. Men would go to the temple of Venus and there would be harlots there. All right. And they would give offerings to to Venus, and they would have sex with the priestesses of Venus, or as she was known in Greece as Aphrodite. All right. The name Aphrodite is a Babylonian is a Babylonian name. It means the subduer of wrath. Why is that? Because she was able to calm the anger of Nimrod. Right. Almost every name of these gods and goddesses can be broken down in the Babylonian or the Hebrew. All right. Like the goddess Rhea, all that term means is the gazer or the gazing woman. Why? Because she was known to have great wisdom, allegedly. Right. She had great wisdom. So she was likened unto the vulture, because the vulture could gaze and could see things from far away. That's why she was known in Egypt. You had the vulture goddess. All these people are the same people. They're all venerated in different cultures with different characteristics. But that's how you know that the apostasy that they led was a worldwide apostasy. All right. That's why when you read Genesis, the 11th chapter, it goes into the building of the tower at Babel. That was commissioned by Cush. All right. Cush also, you know, is where you get the term chaos from. When you go into the Babylonian, Cush becomes chaos, and then that word developed into chaos. Right. He's the one who caused mankind to be scattered or broken up. Right. He's known as the interpreter god. That's why I say he was also known as Hermes. OK, the name Hermes literally means the son of Ham. Cush was the son of Ham. He was also the one who was able to build a dam around Egypt to make it habitable. Right. The northern part of Egypt, also known as Lower Egypt. That's where you get the term Mizraim from. OK. He was that person who was able to combine. See, all of the so-called ancient Egyptians were Cushites. All right. They were the same as the so-called Central Africans. They were all Cushites. The term Mizraim was a name that was given to Cush because he was the one who built the first dam, and he built the first embankment that was able to stop the flooding that was going on in Lower Egypt. All right. He became known in Rome as Janus. Like I said, his son Nimrod became known as Saturn. All right. The term Saturn means the hidden god. That's why you see that in every culture. In Babylon, you had the hidden god. His name was Marduk. In Egypt, you had the hidden god. His name was Amun-Ra. All right. He was the destroyer god. You have the same thing in India, known as Shiva. OK, you see in the same gods over and over and over and over and over again. You have to understand these type of things so that you understand the apostasy. When you understand the apostasy, then you understand when they're trying to package the pagan gods as the biblical gods, because that's what occurred when you had the Nicene Council under Constantine the Great. He was a so-called black man. Right. All those bishops that were at the Nicene Council, they were so-called black, but they were mixing the Babylonian mystery school system in with the scriptures. OK, that's why Paul said the mystery of iniquity already works. Right. It's already at work. You already had men from back then who were coming into the so-called church, and they were bringing in the pagan knowledge, and they were mixing it in with the Bible. They were mixing it in with the scriptures. All right. It's a very long topic, but that's how you know that it's a worldwide thing. All right. And it's still at play today when you have these niggas that talk about the black woman is God. Where are they getting that from? They're getting that from the worship of Semiramis. When you have these women talking about feminism, where is that coming from? That's coming from Semiramis. That was, that when you read the book of Esther in the Bible, I believe it's the first chapter, the second chapter, the Pharaoh had his wife tried to come at him with the feminist spirit, and he had her taken out of power right away. Because like I said before, the men of the dark-skinned nations, they weren't tolerating that. All right. They even worshiped the mother goddess, but they knew better than to allow a lot of that madness to infiltrate the household. All right. But yeah, that's basically that in regards to your question, right? He says it only uses that God term as a form of expression or metaphor. The term God literally means power, brother. All right. That's what the term God means. It means power. Like I said before, Satan is not against the Most High. Like they teach you in a lot of these churches that Satan is against the Most High. Satan works for the Most High on the left-hand side. Okay? It tells you in Isaiah, the 55th chapter, that your thoughts are not the thoughts of the Most High. Your ways are not the ways of the Most High. Right? It tells you in Isaiah, the 45th chapter, in the 7th verse, the Most High said that he creates the good and the evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. All right, a lot of times, a lot of people, not to say you, but a lot of people, they want to limit the Most High to just being a so-called loving God. No, he creates all things. All right. And he has all these different energies on the left hand and the right hand here to bring out what's meant to be brought out amongst every so-called man and woman. All right. So that they can meet their destiny. So let's move on to the next one. 3 a.m. is the devil's hour. Midnight is the witching hour. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I like to be corrected with knowledge. Thank you. Let me see. What do you guys think about Isaiah Thomas's sister's death in a car accident? To be honest with you, bro, that's still under monitoring right now. I'm monitoring that very closely. All right. Isaiah Thomas. When I say Isaiah Thomas, we're talking about the one who plays with the Celtics, not the old school basketball player from the Pistons. He's closely affiliated with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is a definite sun worshiper, he's definitely a member of the Boule. All right, there have been a lot of strange things that have happened around Floyd, and you have to understand something. With a lot of these guys, when they enter into that world, that Black Boule world, which is based off of the Skull and Bones. They become apprentices. They enter into an apprenticeship to a master. And a lot of times, a lot of these older black celebrities, they tell the young black ones on the come up, they say, look, we're watching you and we like you. But if you want to become big time, then you have to provide a blood sacrifice. That's what's called a spade. All right. Jay-Z touched on it in the song Run This Town. Listen to the song Run This Town. He said Jay-Z had a line where he was talking about, he said they should throw their hands in because they ain't got no spades. In other words, when you enter into that world, to show that you're serious, you have to sacrifice somebody close to you. That's when they know that you're serious. When you do that, they will always look out for you. Like when Jennifer Hudson sacrificed her family, allegedly, that was her showing how serious she was about being in the industry. All right. They will always put her in movies. They will always promote her albums from now on. She's good for the rest of her life. At least on this plane of existence, she's good. So yes, I'm paying close attention to the Isaiah Thomas situation. And we'll see what happens with that and with him. But the way the media is playing it up, and they like to, one of their favorite ways of executing the sacrifices in car crashes or plane crashes. All right, because it's harder it looks the least conspicuous. All right, if you remember, the cat that was just drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers, I think her name was Ben Gordon. You know, the cat from Australia. He the night of his draft night, magically his cousin got killed in a car crash. All right. Not Ben Gordon. What's the cat name? Ben Simmons. Ben Gordon, that's the cat who used to play with the Chicago Bulls back in the day. Ben Simmons, he's the one. His cousin got killed, strangely enough, I believe like the night of or the night after he was drafted. All right. Anyway, let's see. Brother Dude what said, apparently Hernandez also wrote some words on his cell. Check out the words that were found written in blood on his cell wall. I believe I mentioned that in the video. So you probably made that comment before you listened to the whole video. Let's see here. It says, if he wrote letters, isn't that proof he killed himself? I don't know if it was Illuminati. I don't think they would write it on the wall. Maybe he had guilt about killing those two guys he got off for. Well, why would he do that and draw pyramids with the so-called all-seeing eye on the wall? That's not making sense. It's not making sense. Like I said before, he was a sacrifice. That was a Beltane sacrifice. That's all that was. That's been going on for years. You guys are going to learn, and I keep saying this, and I don't know if this person, Elisa Michelle, I don't know what so-called, I see you in your avatar. I mean, not that it really matters what so-called race you are, but you know, my channel is mostly geared towards waking up the so-called black man, but everybody's welcome to listen. But, you know, the so-called black man is the one at the bottom. So, of course, you know, it's predicated more towards him. And I'm a so-called black man. So it is what it is. But you so-called black men, you're going to realize in these last days that, and I keep saying this, you are the real life Truman from the Truman Show. All right. You are here strictly to be the subject of entertainment. And you're going to realize that a lot of this stuff that you think that just happens, you're going to realize that it's been scripted. All right. People always talk about, oh, you know, conspiracy. All a conspiracy is when you get multiple people to agree to a plan. That's what people with a ruling class mentality do. They conspire. Right. You so-called black men don't conspire because you have no culture. So that means that you have no unity. All right. So-called blacks always talking about unity, but you can't have unity without a culture. That's not possible. All right. It's just not going to happen. But anyway, let's continue on. Let's see here. Could you please make an in-depth video discussing the Anunnaki and or the fallen angels? This is from Lord Demos. I don't know. I might do a video on that because I know that there's a lot of confusion in regards to that. In regards to the subject matter of Genesis. I believe it's the 4th chapter, the 5th chapter. But Anunnaki, and you know, Anunnaki, that's a Zecharia Sitchin term. Bro, I used to read Zecharia Sitchin books back when I was about 18 or 19. All of that stuff is fabricated, bro. The Anunnaki, all that stuff about aliens coming down and they had monkeys mining gold for them and all the, or apes mining gold for them and all this craziness. These were the gods. First off, Zecharia Sitchin was a Zionist agent. His job was to put out a lot of disinformation. He claimed to be able to translate the Sumerian. First off, the Sumerian is a dead language. There's no way that he could translate this ancient Sumerian. All right, so he made it up, and he made up that story. And that story that he made up was an allegory. It was metaphorical. It was based on Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes was a Caucasian, a British Caucasian racial supremacist who came down from Britain in the mid 1800s, and he opened up a lot of, he plundered the western and central part of Africa in the mid 1800s for gold and for oil. They even had a country named after him called Rhodesia that was renamed to what's known today as Zimbabwe. So basically, Zecharia Sitchin took the story of Cecil Rhodes, who was where you get the term Rhodes Scholar from, is from Cecil Rhodes. And Cecil Rhodes, by the way, was backed by the Rothschilds. And he was a homosexual and a pedophile, allegedly. But anyway, he was backed by the Rothschilds, and he basically plundered that land of most of its natural resources, and opened up a scholarship for him based on his belief that the world should be run with Great Britain as the hub, which Great Britain to this day is basically the hub of rulership of the planet Earth. All right, they only report to the Vatican and Israel. That's it. All right. But that's what the Anunnaki stuff is about. That stuff is not real, bro. All right. When the Bible talks about the giants and those type of things, when you read Genesis the 4th chapter, that's in reference to the when it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of man, that they were fair. That's in reference to the sons of Adam. The sons of Adam saw the women of the other nations, and they engaged in intercourse with them, and they weren't supposed to do that. They were just supposed to stick with the daughters of Adam. All right. The same thing that you read in the scriptures about the sons of Israel, or the sons of Jacob, and they were just supposed to be with the daughters of Israel, the daughters of Jacob, according to the law of the first covenant. Those were basically the same laws that were given to Adam. Adam was basically Israel before the flood, or basically Jacob before the flood. That's how the Lord was dealing with him. All right. The same way that he gave the laws and the statutes unto Jacob, he gave the laws and the statutes unto Adam. That's what Genesis, the 1st chapter, means when it says that the Lord breathed the breath of life into Adam and he became a living soul. All right. The breath of life is the understanding of the law, statutes, and the commandments. Okay. So when you go to Genesis and it tells you about how the sons of God saw the daughters of man, that they were fair and they slept with them and all this other stuff, people tell you that it's angels. And first of all, you have to understand something. Angels are spiritual entities. They are immortal. All right. The reason why human beings have sex with each other is because we have hormones. We have reproductive organs. All right. We do that because we're mortal. So we're given the sexual urge to maintain humankind on the planet. There's no need for angels to have sex because angels are immortal. They don't have hormones. They don't have biochemical processes like we have. All right. So when we think about things just from a sensible perspective, we understand that when it says sons of God, it cannot be talking about angels. It's talking about actual men who were viewed as the sons of God. The same way, like I stated, when you read the scriptures, the sons of Jacob / sons of Israel, also known as the sons of God. All right. But maybe I'll do a video about that in the future. But no, bro, that whole Zechariah Sitchin thing, that was fabricated. That was disinformation that was put out. All right. He couldn't translate ancient Sumerian. Sumerian is a dead language. OK. Let's see here. I remember reading something about Junior Seau being some type of sacrifice. Could be. He allegedly committed suicide May 2nd. Could be, bro. That whole NFL thing, brothers have to understand. The professional sports world is totally based in the same rituals of the pagan gods. All right. What we know today as professional sports, the sports world goes back to Nimrod, the commemoration of Nimrod. All right. Nimrod is the one who started. He's the one who taught mankind how to how to train animals, domesticate animals. That's the word I'm looking for. Domesticate animals. He's the one who brought a lot of the martial arts as far as war and fighting to mankind. He's the one who taught mankind how to build castles and so on and so forth under the guidance of his father Cush. All right. That's one of the meanings behind the double head of Janus. The older head represents Cush. The younger head represents Nimrod. Also, the older head represents Noah in the old world, and the other head represents Noah coming into the new world. That's why I said Janus represents both Noah and Cush and Nimrod. All right. So Cush and Nimrod ruled as a co-regency. And I think I may have mentioned this before. That's why if you ever do any research on the pharaohs of the old kingdom, they'll tell you that Pharaoh Menes, who was the first pharaoh, like I've stated before, Menes is Cush, right? The name Menes means the numberer, right? He's also known as Hermes or Mercury, right? He's also the god of arcane knowledge, all right? It was always secret. That's why, like I said, he's known as Hermes. When you say something is sealed airtight, you say that it is hermetically sealed. Why is that? Because nothing can get in, nothing can get out. That comes from Hermes. He was the god. He created secret knowledge. When you say that something is based on interpretation, you call it hermeneutics. All right. This all comes from this man, Cush, who was also known as Thoth. All right. He's also known as Bel the Confounder. All right. Same thing with Nimrod. Nimrod was known as the god of war. He was known as Mars, right? Or in Babylon as Marduk. He's also known as Merodach. All those words mean rebel. Okay? That was Nimrod. He was the great rebel against the teachings of the Most High. That's why Shem came against him to stop the apostasy. Shem came against him and killed him. But to get back to the point, Nimrod was the great war god. He was the one who taught man about sports and war. And that's why to this day, you'll always notice that they always make sure that most of these sports have a big showing on these holidays, because the holidays are to commemorate Nimrod. Like Christmas is for Nimrod. All right. You know, maybe I'll do a video on the holidays or something like that later on. Like St. Valentine's Day, that's for the god Pan. All right. That's known as the Lupercalia. Right, Lupercalia, Lupercalia. All right. St. Patrick's Day is the Liberalia, Liberalia. All right. All these things go back to the ancient world, brothers. But let's see. Let's continue on. Says it was also mentioned he wanted his daughter to receive money from his recent contract, but I'm not sure of the stipulations that were placed on it when Hernandez went to trial. I'm not sure about that either, bro. I'd have to look that up. Let's see here. Says, love what you say about being about being changed with the crime, and it's all a business, basically. One question, what did you mean by the lawyer will have to pay for winning all his cases? What I mean by that is that this man holds a bias if he becomes a nuisance in regards to getting a lot of these so-called criminals off, because the judicial system is a business. All right. I mentioned this earlier. There's no real money in this society. OK, I'll probably do a series about that. There's no money. When I say there's no money, there's nothing backed by gold or silver. Everything is controlled via the central bank. Everything is based on a debt system. OK, so everything is a tax. That's why when you listen to them talk about Trump and his new healthcare plan, they use the term tax credit. Right. You can only get things on credit. You can only make a promise to pay. You cannot pay anything back because there's no gold or silver back in the money. All right. That's why Trump laughs when people talk about him showing his tax record. That's why they're trying to do tax reform. All right. I got to do another video on Trump because, see, Trump is starting to step on people's toes, and he's starting to do things that have verified certain things that I said in the past about him. Right. The statements that he made about Andrew Jackson verified to me that he understands the banking system and what the banks are doing. All right. But everything, all of this, the judicial system is a complete business. Right. When you become a lawyer, you have to be registered through the barristers over there in England. All right. They work for the British Crown. Right. The lawyer's job is just to make sure that you pay up. Every crime has a monetary value. All crimes are classified as commercial crimes. All right. Period. If you have enough money, you can get off on anything, and everything is just a tax credit. You cannot pay for anything because there's no money. They do not allow real money to be circulated, because real money like gold and silver is indicative of you being a sovereign citizen. All right. You're not a sovereign citizen. Under the 14th Amendment, you are property of the Corporation of the United States. OK. In 1871, the United States was incorporated. It is a business. Right. Allegedly. Let me throw that in there. But the country is the United States of America. The business is the United States. You understand that? That's why you have a president. Right. He presides. A president's job is to preside over a corporation, not to lead a country. You notice in all these other countries, they don't have titles like kings or queens. They have prime ministers. You understand? The term minister means a servant. Prime minister is just another way of saying a president. They must report to the real ruler. The real ruler is who? The Queen of England. Okay. Trump right now is like a corporation, a guy who's a high up in a corporation who doesn't get along with the other corporate heads. That's all he is. But there's a board of trustees. The board of trustees is known as who? The international bankers. All right. That's it. Spiritual head is the Pope. The corporate, business leaders are the international bankers, right? And the military head is the so-called president of the United States. All right, that's all it basically is. That's all it is in a nutshell. But yeah, the judges are what you call the priests of Baal or the priests of Saturn. That's why they wear the all black robes. Okay, the Supreme Court is not even the highest judicial court of the land. The highest judicial court of the land is in Pennsylvania. All right, all this stuff is just for show. It's just a big figurehead. The highest court is in Pennsylvania. It's not the so-called Supreme Court. All right, they are judges. They are justices of Baal. All right, which is another name for Nimrod. The name Baal just means Lord. The Baal is the god of the blood sacrifice. All right, but that's why they always wear all black. That's where that comes from. But every time you go to court, you have to bring a tax. You basically are paying a tax credit. That's what they call a charge. All right, when they say that they're going to put a certain bail on you, that's another tax credit. That's a credit. All right, the court is a business. That's why they all have a Duns and Bradstreet number. That's all. The job of the judge is to make sure that you can pay up. If you can't pay up, then you got to go to jail. Period. In other words, jail is where you go to work off your debt. Okay, that's why they don't like that's why they don't like killing people. People think that, oh, well, they took away the death penalty out of the kindness of their heart. No, they didn't. They took away the death penalty because you're worth more working as a debt slave in the prison system. All right. Now, when you go to join the military, you can become a stock option that way, and you're actually worth more dead than alive because they can collect the insurance that they put out on your life. They put a bond on you when you get that, when you join the military, they put that bond out there on you. Everybody has a bond put on them. It's called the birth certificate. For those of you who don't know. All right. When you're born and you get a birth certificate, that's your first bond number. All right. That's internationally traded. Your birth certificate is not even really held in the United States. Your birth certificate is held over there in Switzerland. All right. So everything is about the money. That's why I said there is no money. You are the money. You're the collateral. All right. You're the collateral for the debt that's owed to the international bankers. Period. That's why they killed Lincoln, because Lincoln was against he was against the international bank. He did not want a United States national bank here. All right. So they got rid of him. All right. And that's the reasoning behind what Trump said about Andrew Jackson. He said Andrew Jackson could have solved this whole issue with the Civil War, and they got mad at him, and they tried to the mainstream media tried to throw all this stuff out of there about how he owned slaves and all that. What Trump was getting at was that Andrew Jackson was against the central bank. So Trump understands that the central banks are the international bankers are the ones that caused the Civil War, like I said before. All right. That's why you got to watch how Trump is moving right now. You're going to see he's going to get more and more demonized by the mainstream media. And, I just saying, keep your eyes open for anything that may happen. All right. Allegedly. Let's move on. Huge fan of yours and respect all the knowledge that you drop on the videos. And can you please do a video on Steve Coakley and Dick Gregory? And can you please do a video on the findings of the book, The Plot to Kill King, the truth behind the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The book says that Dr. King was shot in the face, and a Memphis doctor killed MLK at St. Joseph's Hospital because King survived the shooting at the time. I haven't heard that, brother. I haven't read that book, but that's definitely a book that I'll probably get, and it wouldn't surprise me. Supposedly, since you bring that up, when Malcolm X was shot, even though he was shot all those times, allegedly he was still alive there on the ground, and they had someone there posing as a doctor or a physician who was there and was actually acting like he was giving Malcolm mouth to mouth, but was actually sucking the air out of his lungs. All right. So those men, like I said before, those men had a hit put out on them, and they were, but I gotta do a video on Martin Luther King, man. I really do. But it'll happen. But yeah, brother, good comment. Thank you. Let me see here. Sandra Love, hey, what is up? I'm gonna do a video on you too. I have a video coming called the Deborah Demon that I have to do. That's coming soon. The Deborah Demon is very, very important for you so-called black men to understand. All right. Let's see here. Great video. I too asked whether he was sexually abused during childhood. I like how you broke things down. Thank you. The reason why I say that I believe that he may have been sexually abused, you can tell by the multiple personality disorder that he went through. A lot of these guys are MK Ultra athletes. He may have been one. All right. He may have been one. It's very common that you see MK Ultra athletes. Certain organizations know who and what they are. They'll draft them because the coaches are MK Ultra handlers. All right. People like Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, Belichick, these different guys, they're handlers. All right. Believe it or not, allegedly. But these top coaches, they're handlers, man. Let's see here. They were like, let's kill him. He might get exonerated for the other case. Yes, I believe that's why they get that. I believe that's why they sacrificed him. That's exactly why I believe they did it. For a Beltane sacrifice, and also because they believe with this lawyer might get him off. That's why I said pay attention to what happens with this lawyer Baez, because they did the same thing with Johnny Cochran. All right. Do you write a script? It seems a bit difficult to be able to regurgitate all of the information you do in all of your videos. You always give me shit to research. That's good, bro. I'm glad that I gave you stuff to research, and thank you for the compliment. Right? If you feel like I'm informing you with so much information that I must write it down, no, brother, I don't write anything down. This is just one of the gifts that I have, is to recall information. Like I said, I do love history. I always have, even from a young child. Like I've stated, I don't smoke weed. I don't play video games. I don't get caught up in none of the, any of the. I don't get caught up in any of the multitude of things that a lot of people get caught up in that distract them from being able to focus on what's going on. And that oftentimes is why I forget certain names and certain events when I make these videos, because I do it off the top of my head based off of things that I've read. All right. When I do read from something, I make sure that I put it in the video so that y'all can see what I'm reading from. All right. But I think that it's good that I don't put a lot of things up, because it makes you go do your own research. You're supposed to do your own research on everything that you're told. All right. We live in a regurgitation society where people just repeat what they heard other people say. And that's the main reason why there's so much confusion now. All right. But we're in the age of information now. There's no excuse for why people don't do their own research on certain things. A lot of times I read the comments, people say, how do you know all this stuff? I feel like if I was a so-called white man, you wouldn't ask me how I know all this stuff. You would just assume that I was well read in whatever I was speaking about. But when you're a so-called black man, people act confounded that you actually know things. All right. You're going to come to find out. And in some of these different videos that I'm going to make, you're going to come to find out that most of the great learners, teachers were all so-called black men. All right. You're going to come to find that out. But anyway, Marco Kane said, if Osiris is Nimrod, does that mean the Most High is the demiurge? Well, demiurge, bruh, you sound like a Gnostic Negro to me. I call that a Gnostic Negro. A Gnostic Negro is a cat who don't know if he wants to be an atheist or if he wants to believe in God. They're usually kind of halfway intelligent. They do a little too much reading for their own good. When I say that, they're reading the wrong stuff. They've never had anybody really explain to them certain things. I mean, if you're using, when you say a demiurge, if you trying to go into that Platonic philosophy, basically, brother, Most High is what he says he is. He's the Alpha to the Omega. All right. I believe that the term used in the Platonic philosophy would be the monad, not the demiurge. All right, but I could be incorrect. I haven't read about Platonic philosophy in a long time, but I believe that the term that would be more applicable to the Most High would be the monad. I believe that Christ would be the demiurge, but like I said, I have to look back into that philosophy again. But no, Nimrod is Osiris. The name Nimrod means the subduer of the leopard. Why is that? Because like I said, he's the one who domesticated animals. He's the one who taught mankind how to kill a lot of the wild animals that were plaguing them when they tried to create habitations after the flood. All right. But his name means subduer of the leopard. It's broken down as Nimrod is broken down as Narmer Mered. All right. Narmer Mered, subduer of the leopard. Okay. That's why, once again, you look up the Pharaoh king list. The first co-regency was Menes and Pharaoh Narmer. All right. But yeah, that's Nimrod. And Osiris, that term just means the seed. All right. Hey Siri, the seed. All right. That's where you guys get, by the way. That's where you guys get the That's where you guys get the term Siri from. When you guys have got your little iPhones or your iPad, or you talk to that voice, Siri. Remember, Siri is the name of the mother goddess. That female voice that you're talking to, that's the mother goddess. That's why she knows everything. All right? She's the mother of knowledge, Siri. Okay? But anyway, that's it on the comments for this one. Peace.